this isn't just a Matthew West tour that got canceled with Casting Crowns. This is Jake, the guitar player, whose wife is a flight attendant and just had a baby. And, they were relying on being, Jake being on tour with me. That's just one person's story, right? So a lot of stories are impacted. Every one of our stories is being impacted right now in big and in small ways.
Matthew West is my guest today on CIA Contagious Influencers of America, the podcast from the producers of Keep the Faith. And I'm going to welcome Matthew here to the studio. One of my favorite folks to come in and chat with me. And then again, we've just recently opened up the homestead studio here after being hunkered down here for a couple of months. I was really, really interested in getting Matthew in here because normally he is, he's one of the busiest guys on the road. He's always traveling with his band and his crew, and they were to go out on the road along with Casting Crowns here over the next few weeks, few months. Like everybody else in Nashville, they have been grounded. There are no tours. There's no live concerts, unless you count, what these folks are doing online from their own homes, which has been kind of interesting to watch. I wanted to get Matthew in here and get his perspective on things, his perspective on, live tours, what we can expect in the months to come, how he and his wife Emily and their family are doing. So he's going to fill us in. I just want to encourage all of you to just say a special prayer for all of our friends in the music industry right now, because a lot of people are really, really hurting. They don't really have a plan B, which we're going to get into with Matthew. We're going to see what it's like when that revenue dries up. You got to understand, there used to be multiple streams of revenue for music artists. Now it's basically touring. We'll get into that right now with Matthew West. We've been hunkered down here for a couple of months, and I've been here basically all alone with a couple of my folks that would come in and help turn on the lights. No artists, no authors, no guests. And now all of a sudden this week, here you are. It's like,
well, I heard you were lonely. I had to come and visit. I think Hunkered Down should be the title of my next album. What do you think?
It definitely would speak to me. So let's get the obvious out of the way. How has life been for you at the homestead with the family for the last couple of months?
Well, hunkered down is really the appropriate term. It's been really interesting. Tennessee's just starting to kind of slowly open up, and the weather's getting warmer, and we're starting to feel a little bit, it's still nothing like normal used to be. But, it's been an interesting season to say the least. It's been devastating on some fronts with tourists, with tours canceling, trying to figure out how to provide for your team, my band, my crew. These are the times, this is what I've noticed, David, is as a recording artist, you like to think yourself in those kind of creative terms, like I write songs and I'm a recording artist. But these last few months have been smacking me in the face with the reluctant title of CEO, right? And so you have to dig in these times and really figure out, okay, I got to put my big boy pants on. This isn't just, smelling the roses and writing songs. This is about dealing with some very real issues. And then as a family, as a parent, as a dad, trying to lead my family through crisis has been something that, I feel like the Lord's been really working with me and helping me lead my family in ways where there's times where I'd rather freak out, and I feel like the Lord's helping me stay calm and lead my family, trying to lead them well. But I'll tell you, one of the neatest moments has been, we've been taking these family walks, and we started talking about taking turns as a family, and we say, okay, what was your silver lining today? And each one of us talks about an unexpected blessing that we discovered. And sometimes it's the same thing, but that right there, that family walk, is one of my silver linings every day. So when I'm done talking with you, guess what I'm going to be doing? Taking a family walk and talking about the silver linings. And that's how the Lord works. I mean, he shows us the silver linings, even though that cloud is still right over our heads and isn't showing any signs of moving anytime soon.
What is going through your head? First of all, we all had this big plan for 2020. I mean, this was going to be the year, right?
Oh, yeah.
We had this vision, this big idea that this was going to be the beginning of a new decade and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then this happens, and the world's been turned upside down. And, you know, for an artist who spends a lot of his life on the road, and let's face it, that's the way you make the majority of your income now, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, as an artist.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And everybody that works for you or with you, that's the way they make an income.
Absolutely.
So what do you do now to pay the bills?
Yeah, that's been what we've tried to figure out. You know, I mean, it's crazy to think like, wait, I'm in line just like everybody else to figure out the PPP plan, and I'm learning all these things. It's like, I just want to go write songs today, but I'm having to like do all this research and have my team help me figure out. Cause you know, at the end of the day, this isn't just a Matthew West tour that got canceled with Casting Crowns. This is Jake, the guitar player, whose wife is a flight attendant and just had a baby. And, you know, they were relying on being, you know, Jake being on tour with me. You know, that's just one person's story, right? So a lot of stories are impacted. Every one of our stories is being impacted right now in big and in small ways. So it's definitely been one of those things where I'm having to try to figure it out, you know, trying to, you know, I want to live my life with generosity at all times, but it's certainly at this time where I'm going, okay, I got to provide for my family, but I got a larger family too that I have to figure out how to provide for. So, you know, I am thankful the Lord has blessed me in my life and given me the opportunity to do something that I love and to make music for a living, and I'm grateful for that. And you can still be a songwriter even in times like this. And so I've leaned into some other lanes of creativity, and in the hopes that, you know, that's what the Lord wants me to do and continue to do that. So, but to be honest with you, I don't have all the answers. As I sit here and talk with you today, you're talking to somebody who wishes beyond anything that he could give you the perfect Christian answer and say, you know what? I know the Lord's in control, and not for a second have I been discouraged, and my questions don't bother me and don't worry me, but that's just not true. You know, I've been riddled with questions. I wish I could tell you that I haven't lost sleep, but there's probably some bags under my eyes because I have a hard time sleeping. And you know, one of the things that's really brought me comfort is the story of Jesus and the disciples getting out on the boat, and Jesus goes to sleep, right? Talk about calm under pressure. Jesus falls asleep and a storm happens. We all know the story if you've spent any time reading the Bible, and the disciples are convinced they're going to drown. And one of the things the Lord's given me comfort in, I found grace in this, in the story of the disciples. They did two things. I've read through the scripture several times as we've been on quarantine. The disciples, when the waves started to hit, the first thing they did was they freaked out. And I took comfort in that because I think I've done that several times as well. And these were Jesus' right-hand men, and they freaked out. But then the second thing they did is they chose to seek out the one who was calm. They went straight to Jesus, right? So they didn't stay in their freak out. They would have drowned if all they did was freak out. But they stopped freaking out long enough to go, wait a minute. We might have somebody on this boat who can save us. And I feel like that's what I've had to do over and over again is I might have a moment where I freak out because of a new news report, or guess what? You may not play a show for this amount of time or whatever. But then I'm trying to do my best to take a deep breath and then seek out God's wisdom. And I don't have it all together, but I'm trying to make my way through and trying to lead my family and my team well.
Let's just look back over the last 2 months. What was on your books that got canceled?
Yeah,
just give me a broad sweep.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing was I released an album on Valentine's Day, and here was the irony of it, David. It was called. So okay, here we are heading into 2020. You just said it moments ago. This was supposed to be the year, right? A new year, a new decade, right? Even the numbers, 2020. How good did they look, right? And then fast forward to where we are now. I saw a post on social media. Somebody posted this funny thing. It said, "We regret to inform you that 2020 has been officially canceled. We're skipping straight to 2021. And so what was funny is I released an album. I thought, brand new year, brand new decade. I'm going to call my album Brand New, right? Both for the physical relevance, but also the spiritual relevance of that. And man, 2020 feels old in a hurry. So just after I went to New York and filmed some special performances at YouTube studios to celebrate the release of the album, the country shuts down. I was supposed to be on tour with Casting Crowns. We were in the middle of, we had just begun the tour, and we were in Trenton, New Jersey on a Thursday night getting ready for the show in an arena. And we found out from the governor, who was in the same city, the governor of New Jersey was in Trenton, and he shut the show down and shut the city down, and we found out our whole tour was canceled. And next thing I know, I'm in an Uber on my way to the airport to fly home to Nashville, and haven't left my house since, haven't left Nashville since. So and it's not just that spring tour that got canceled. It's now June, July, August. We may not be on stage in 2020. And literally devastating for our industry, not just for me as an artist, but every one of us.
When was the last time that you had 2 or 3 months like this to kick back, kind of recharge, maybe get an extra couple hours of sleep, not be running for airplanes and on buses? When was the last time you spent this much time with your wife?
It was a great question. The last time that I had a season anything like this was when I had vocal cord surgery. And there's some similarities from that season to now. And really, the two similarities is me learning something about myself, that I sometimes am guilty of not being able to slow down until somebody makes me slow down. And by that, I mean God pressing the pause button, whether I like it or not, because I'm a striver. I'm after it, man. I'm always doing something, always coming up with, I can't shut my brain off. I'm always having ideas. And I think that's the way God wired me. And I love to walk in that, but sometimes, there's always an unhealthy side to all of our giftings, right? And so the last time I had a season like this was another time where the pause button had been pressed for me. My voice had literally been taken away. If I had sat down to try to have an interview like this, I couldn't sing. I couldn't even speak, and literally canceled all my concerts. That was a different stage of my career, but I lost everything. Really had to start over from scratch financially and everything. And that was a season, and my voice was taken away. For about 2 months out of that, it was about a year that I was completely out of commission, but it was really about 2 months where I couldn't speak even. And that was an intense season in my life, an intense trial. But just like the Lord's doing now, he spoke to me then in a powerful way. And what I realized is that he's never stopped speaking to me. The problem has always been I've been a little too busy to pay attention. And there's been those moments that are few and far between, I'm sad to say, where I've stopped long enough to listen. And I'm thankful for those seasons in my life. I like to think of all the 3-minute songs that I've written. Those represent moments where I was listening to the Lord. And I keep asking the Lord, turn those moments into hours. I'm not saying I want to write an hour-long song. I just want to spend more time with you and not get too antsy to leave your presence. And this has been a season where I feel it's very similar to how the Lord's kind of drawn me closer to him, like he did when I was recovering from my throat surgery.
So let's say that this goes on for another year. Okay. There's no vaccine. It's not really economical. It doesn't make sense to go out there and operate in 2/3 of the states. They're changing the rules every other day. You can't really put together a tour, because by the time you get there, they've closed the state down, and you've wasted all that money in marketing and everything else.
That's right.
It's just so freaking unpredictable.
It's
right?
a mess. Yeah.
What's plan B?
I've had so many meetings asking that same question, to be honest with you, because you're exactly right. Like, we're even dealing with it right now. Just not to get too into the weeds for the listener, but promoters book these concerts and these festivals, and so every day, even as I'm sitting with you, I guarantee you I have emails coming in saying, okay, this concert in August is pushing it to October. And they keep kicking the can down the road. Or they say, okay, it's canceled and we're moving it to this date in 2021. And I'm like, I literally emailed my booking agent yesterday going, man, I don't know how to commit to one show in the middle of wherever on this date of July 2021. It just feels so like ambiguous and very odd. And so it's almost like, I almost described it like this, and with all due respect to those dealing with any one of these examples, I feel like I'm planning a wedding and a funeral at the same time. And I don't even know if that's an entirely accurate analogy. It's just literally like I'm booking concerts, but in the back of my mind, I'm going, I don't think this concert's going to play. And so I'm trying to walk by faith. I'm trying to believe that the time is going to come. But here's the other thing, and we've all talked about this, like with Casting Crowns, and it's like, we don't want to be the ones who do the concert and then people get sick, right? I mean, we want to have, like, we love the people that we sing for. And so in a time where our whole world's trying to figure out what is truth, what's going on, what are the symptoms? I mean, we're all learning about this. The reality is, I think we want to walk by faith, but we also want to use common sense and use discernment there. And I think the Lord, is calling us to do that. And so I've seen some of these churches that have continued, that were holding their services and then people getting sick, and you just get concerned about those kinds of things. And so I'm trying to
not to mention the legality, the legality
of it. I mean,
ramification.
And that's the thing that, like, literally, okay, so great example. I was on the phone with my attorney yesterday, and he was saying, he's like, look, if you decide to do a concert, you've got to, it's not just you, it's not just the promoter who's going to be liable. Like, you've got to realize that this is going to be an interesting situation. So the short answer to your question about what is plan B, I go back to the fact that I've leaned into other lanes of creativity. I mean, I'm writing songs like crazy, and that's something I can do with or without an audience. So perhaps plan B looks like, gosh, you typically release an album every 2 years. Well, maybe plan B is that more music is the music that's coming out of me might be put together. Maybe I'll be putting out a record sooner than that. I'm getting ready to launch a podcast, something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And so there's different things like that I'm leaning into, and really just kind of going, okay, Lord, my stage is taken away from me, but I know you've given me a voice, and you didn't give me a voice and a story to tell and songs and a gift of communication for that to be hidden under a bushel just because the tours are canceled. So plan B is going into effect, and is still very fuzzy.
Have you ever written a plan B song?
Because maybe in some ways a lot of my songs are plan B.
Well, no, here, I got an idea for you. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay. We're going to be doing, beginning in July.
Yeah.
The emphasis on the radio side of this equation with Keep the Faith is we're going to continuously, week after week, the show's going to be about getting your tools back. Because the way I explain it to my folks, I say, look, back in March, we went to bed. Next to our bed was our toolbox, and it was jam-packed full. It was good. Life was good. It was we couldn't get all of our tools in the toolbox. It was crazy. And then this evil guy by the name of Corona came in and stole all of our tools, and now we have an empty toolbox. Right. And I said, it is our job to help people get their tools back, one by one.
That's great.
Okay?
Yeah.
Through stories, through songs, through inspiration. And this is not a 1 day, a 1 week idea. This has got to be like a long time idea, right? Because we're going to come up with more answers as we go along. We're going to come up with more influencers that have ideas. We're just going to be able to connect the dots as we go along, right? And because there are people that are going to lose everything, that have already lost everything.
Yes, yeah.
There are people that are devastated.
Yeah.
Here's an idea for a song for you. You write this song and I will get it on the air.
Okay.
Okay? And then basically the idea is we went to bed with the perfect plan. We woke up, it was gone. Then we thought of plan B.
Yeah,
that didn't work.
Yeah.
We went to plan C.
Yeah.
Now we're in plan G.
But
that's
that's
the way life freaking is.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so right. And I love that image of the toolbox too, because there is the possibility that some of the tools that you've relied on may never find their way back to the toolbox. Like that's honestly what, at least for the next foreseeable future. So, and I look at that as like, it's the things that we've put our weight on, right? Like a tool that you use is a tool that's reliable typically. And so when you've been able to rely on certain things for your revenue, for employment, for your team, and those get stripped away from you, you don't just sit around and starve. You figure out what are some of the other tools that at my disposal that I maybe have overlooked. What's the Lord trying to show me? Are there other muscles that I haven't been training that he wants me to develop at this point, right? And so I've started writing a book that is going to be my 6th book but you know what happened? I didn't have time to pour into that book because my touring was so exhausting. But I knew that book was in me, and I knew the concept was in me. And guess what? The concept is for such a time as this. And so I can see those things coming into focus. And I think that's a great encouragement for your listener right now, too, that image of what you talked about, because everybody's in that boat. And this has been a great leveler, a great equalizer. The 1%, the 99%. Every single one of us have been affected in some way and had some tools, some reliable tools have been stripped away from us. And that's a great a realization. And I think what it hopefully will do is, my instinct a lot of time is to go, okay, some of those things that I've relied on are now gone. So am I going to look within to find the answers that I need? Or am I going to look up and go, okay, Lord, my trust is in you. I don't want to rely on my own ingenuity. I don't want to rely on my own resourcefulness, right? I know that you've given me skills, but I don't want to get ahead of you. And so that's honestly been the biggest wrestling match these last 2 weeks, because I've gone into survival mode, and for my team, for my employees, for my family. And I wrestle with that because it's like, on the one hand, I know that the Lord's, put me in charge of, there's a better way of saying that, but it's like, I know that the resourcefulness he's blessed me with is going to serve me well, but I also don't want to get so far ahead of God in figuring out what plan B is and miss the fact that maybe he had a different plan B all along. And so I'm trying to find that place, where I'm really okay being dependent on him, and really okay with the fact that I don't know. There's some things I just don't know. Like I feel like tension rising in me is like, you asked me a certain question and it's like, I honestly could have stopped by, I don't know. You could have said what's next, and I could have said I don't know, but I felt this pressure to come up with an answer, and it's like, no, I kind of just don't know. You know what I mean? And it's making me depend on God.
The other thing, the way I look at what has occurred is that we were in this crazy, crazy world, this crazy situation. It was us against them against us. It was like college football.
Right.
Everybody was very tribal. You were either on this team or that team. And I think God just decided to give us all a big timeout. We were a little too comfortable in our nest, and like a mama bird kicking her birdies out of the nest so that they can learn to fly.
I feel that.
Now, we've been kicked out of our comfort zones, right? Now we got to fly. We got to learn to fly, which, by the way, you can either take a nosedive and just crash and burn,
Yeah.
Right? Or you can figure out a way to use those wings.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of think that's where we are, or both.
You know, I think sometimes the crash and burn has to, Saul had to get knocked off of a donkey by a blinding light before he became Paul. I've always related to him in that.
So what are you changing your name to?
Man.
Matthew East?
Yeah, Matthew East. Well, maybe when I put out songs like Quarantine Life, I'll go under the alter ego of Matthew East. But I do feel like that nosedive applies to me, as does the, getting back up and getting back up and trying again. And I think you're exactly right about just kind of what I've been reminded of, and man, I'm just as guilty as any Christian out there who has sought a safe Christian existence. And man, Christian and safe, show me where in Scripture, those two thoughts go together. Of course, it says that we will be that we are safe under the shelter of God's protection, that he's our strong tower, right? So there's a safety that we're promised in Christ, but it's not a safety in the sense that we're never going to face trouble, right? John 16:33 is literally the message that says, no, you're going to have trouble. In this world, you will. Not might, not could, not occasionally. You will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And so, I think I am being reminded in a great way that Jesus never said I was going to have this nice, cushy, or that I was called to pursue this nice, comfortable, safe Christian life with a nice house and all the, you know what I mean? It kind of, everything's been thrown up in the air going, you know what? We're going to have some dangerous seasons, and maybe the more dangerous our lives get, we might be awakened to something and awaken to the fact that God never called us to that comfortable existence in the first place. Maybe we haven't been living and giving dangerously enough, right? And really seeking the center of God's will. The center of God's will for our life. It's not a safe place to be, but it's the best place to be.
What is the one thing that if you had the opportunity to look at something differently going forward, to reinvent, to pivot differently, to just say, you know what, this is my chance to look at things differently. Before we started recording, we were talking about commercial real estate. Now all of a sudden, all these businesses are thinking, well, maybe we don't need to have people come into the office. Maybe we'd get a lot more out of people if they weren't commuting an hour or 2 or 3 hours every day, and they could do what they do from home. Maybe they would appreciate us more, and we'd save a ton of money. Right? That's a major way of looking at things differently.
Yeah.
How would you like to look at your life, your situation, your family situation, your relationship with your wife differently going forward if you had that opportunity to reinvent your situation?
It's a great question, and I think it's probably on the minds of a lot of people, and every day I'm thinking about that question that you just asked, whether I was able to verbalize it like that or not, or think about the word pivot and, really indicating a change of direction, not necessarily intended to circle back around. Right. There's some areas of my life that I don't want to go back to normal. One of the things I've always wrestled with is the amount of time that I have to spend away from my family. In fact, one of the neatest moments of my life was I got to sit with Billy Graham at his kitchen table. Before he passed away, his grandson Will took me to meet him. And I'll never forget driving in the mountains of North Carolina and showing up at this humble home, walking into this kitchen that looked like we were at Cracker Barrel, and we sat down at this old wooden table, this circular table, sat down with Billy Graham. And, I asked Jesus into my heart watching a Billy Graham crusade as a kid, and he knew that and knew about my career in music. And the point I'm trying to make is one of the things he said to me, I asked him, I said, do you have any regrets? I was just curious, and I just decided to have the courage to ask the question. And selfishly, I was asking the question because I thought if even Billy Graham has regrets, then maybe we can all feel like we're off the hook a little bit. But he honestly answered, and his regret had to deal with the amount of time that Billy Graham, had to spend away from his family. But he was doing something good. He was doing something good. I mean, he was traveling around the world. He wasn't traveling around the world partying like a rock star. He was traveling around the world on a mission so that lost people would come to find hope in Jesus. There were good things he was doing and good intentioned things, right? And yet he said, that's one of my regrets. He said, I know God's given me grace for that. He's helped me make up for lost time. But if I could do that differently, I would. And I realized in that moment, he wasn't just telling me his story. He was speaking to a musician. He knew who he was talking to. And he was challenging me in that moment to realize what I'm realizing now as a result of this pandemic is going, hey, don't miss the calling right in front of you as a dad and as a husband. And don't get all caught up in your good things that you're doing, right? Don't cover it up in the name of, oh, hey, God's called you to do these things, which is true, right? But also realizing, hey, he's called me to be a husband who's faithful and in the mix and having a strong relationship with his wife of 17 years. And he's called me to be connected in the lives of his daughters to the point where they don't grow up saying, you know what? Yeah, Dad was a famous singer, but man, he never really took an interest in my life. And that's a thought that has haunted me. And I think, convicted me. I think conviction gets a bad rap because being convicted is a good thing, right? Because it's reminding your heart which direction it should point in. And so I would say, as I think about your question, like one of the big pivots is probably, hey, I might do less concerts than I've ever done before. And some people would go, man, you're crazy. The money you're going to leave on the table or who doesn't want to be celebrated in front of a live audience? And it's like, you know what, man, I'd rather be celebrated at my funeral by a family who said, you know what, Dad always made me a priority. And I want that in my life. I don't want that to be one of my regrets. So I'd say that's probably one of the biggest pivots.
Well, my friend, it's been fun.
Yeah.
We're going to have to hang out more. You have nothing to do all summer, so.
Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, that's funny, man. People are like, hey, can you send a video for my daughter's 7th birthday? Yeah, sure. Hey, you know what I mean? Like yesterday I sang a wedding song for a couple who had to cancel. They were going to use my song in their wedding, and I did a Zoom call with them. It's just I've been just like, hey man, I'm available. Call me up.
Well, have you seen that? I forget what service it is. There's some service out there where you pay $100 or something, and you get like what's her name?
It's like a celebrity greeting or something.
The teen singer from the 90s. What was her name? Not Tiffany, the other one.
Like Debbie Gibson?
Debbie Gibson.
Yeah.
Debbie Gibson will I think it's Debbie Gibson.
Oh, no. They're all doing.
Right.
Yeah. It's like this service where if you want a specialized message from your favorite celebrity, you can pay, which kind of weirds me out.
Hold on. We have found the sponsor for your podcast.
Is that it?
I will sing for you.
That's it. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, man, I'll take what I can get nowadays, man. That's it. It's so funny it's been so funny to see the different, I'll tell you, I really have enjoyed these different points of access to people. And maybe people feel like they have more access to me. I hope they do. I hope they've always felt like that. I think I've tried to conduct my platform not like a celebrity's platform, but always. And I think that's one of the reasons why I write so many songs inspired by people's stories, because I don't want to lose that. So in some ways, like, this is more of the same. Like, I've been singing happy birthday to 6-year-olds my whole career because one, my mom and dad will never let me get too big for that. You know what I mean? My dad is always like, hey, there's this kid here. I don't know how they reach people have realized that the way to get to me has been my parents, and I was watching this documentary with Michael Jordan. And it made me think of my dad because they were saying that Michael's dad would always bring some kid from the crowd who needed to pick me up or whatever. And no matter how many people Michael greeted and signed autographs for, the longest day imaginable, Michael Jordan, right? Press and everything. And at the end, he still had to sit and sign a basketball for for some kid who was, from an, underprivileged family or something like that. And it made me think of my dad, because that's always my dad. I can get off stage completely exhausted and I just want to go eat a slice of pizza or whatever. And my dad will go, hey, I know you're tired, but man, I got this family here and they've just been through so much. And your song has really just been their anthem. Could you say hi? And I'm like, man, that's awesome. I'll always make time for that.
I'm going to be looking forward to that big hit single later this summer.
Yeah, what did we decide? Plan G?
Plan G, yeah.
Plan G.
Plan G. Okay.
I love it. Thanks for the idea.
Please do keep Matthew and his family and all of our friends here in Nashville in your prayers. It is definitely a challenging time. When Matthew left the studio, he always brings his guitar and volunteers to play a little something and or shoot something for online video. He just loves to do that. And, every time you put a Matthew West video up there, you get tons and tons of views. And so I thought, well, what can we do? And so I set a chair in my backyard and I said, Matthew, since you're not working, since you're not doing anything, would you do a backyard concert for me, just for me? And that's what he did. He sat in my backyard and did a song or two with his guitar, and it was pretty special. So, gosh, I was talking to a buddy last night. He says, you ought to have a series of backyard concerts this summer. When artists come over to your place, just have your own little backyard summer series. I thought, well, Jimmy Kimmel used to have these big summer concert series from Hollywood, with all these fans and screaming people and all these big acts. And I might as well just do the same thing, but I'll just have them come to my backyard. I'll sit down in one chair and then maybe I'll invite over a couple of friends and have my own series. So it's crazy. I don't know if we've just gone, if we're cabin fever or what the deal is. Of course, we're allowed out now here in Tennessee. It's not that way all over the country, but we're actually treated like adults, and we're doing our thing, and we're doing a social distancing for the most part. And I know some of you won't agree with this, but I actually do wear a mask when I go into out in public, into stores and things. Not when I'm driving my car or when I'm out running. I don't wear a mask, but otherwise I do. We got to make the most of this situation, and every once in a while you got to get a good little giggle out of things. I know it's tough for some of us because things are kind of not looking real good right now. But if you can get a little pleasure by having a little fun, getting a little laugh, whatever that may be. In my case, it might be when an artist comes over, just hey, will you come in my backyard and put on a little concert for me for 15 minutes? It brings a smile to my face. So, hey, listen, this has been CIA, Contagious Influencers of America, the podcast from the producers of Keep the Faith. And if you get a chance, check out our KeepTheFaith.com channel on YouTube. You have to actually type in KeepTheFaith.com on YouTube, and you'll see our channel. And it's really cool because we have all of these great, first we have a great series of playlists, but then we have actual hours of our Keep the Faith program on there that you can listen to, music and all, because on YouTube you can put music. So that's pretty cool. We can't do that on the podcast, but we can do it on YouTube. So I would encourage you to check out our KeepTheFaith.com channel on YouTube. So that's it for this edition of CIA, Contagious Influencers of America. Please do rate and review us. That means a lot. Your reviews mean a lot, and it really helps to encourage other people to check out this podcast. Remember, go out there and live that life in living color, and we'll see you next time.